that's 100% lost production on those acres. And so just talking to guys, and is your crop bigger or smaller? Most of them are saying smaller. I did a lot of driving. There's two numbers, I'll tell you that. There's the numbers that Stats Canada is going to say that's going to be out there, which the market will trade. And then there's the numbers that Todd and I think that is probably out there, but they were going to be wrong. So they're probably by default getting closer. But if we take just even a 40 bushel average crop out there, you're looking at maybe 21 million ton sub. Yeah, primarily Saskatchewan, but they can be all over. And we talk to guys that cover other areas. What I would just say is, like, we just tend to try to focus on, is the crop bigger or smaller? You don't want to be necessarily exact on it. And I would say, like Darren mentioned a month ago, the crop was looking in many areas like they were going to have as good as last year, because last year was a phenomenal crop for a lot of guys. But early on, like when you get such a huge area, when you got eastern Saskatchewan and northeast Saskatchewan and Lloydminster to Edmonton that are so wet, and you're taking acres off the book right away because they lost acres. Just talked to a farmer a couple of days ago from Tisdale that, had 400 acre fields that he was only going to probably harvest, 200 acres of that field. I mean, that's 100% lost production on those acres. And, so just talking to guys, and is your crop bigger or smaller? Most of them are saying smaller. I did a lot of driving around the country here this last week, went to Greenwater Lake, and the crops just look, for the most part, weaker than I would say in those areas. Yeah, there's some areas that are beautiful and they've got some great crops, but I'm thinking it's trending smaller than what people think than last year.
Todd, what's your take?
Well, last year I had some growers that had phenomenal yields. They're probably not there this year. I've got other growers that came up light last year, thought they had a better crop that than they ended up with, that this year think maybe they might outdo last year. But I agree with Dave. There's probably areas in Alberta that lost acres 100%. I think the big thing is going to be how we finish here. Guys don't, with the new seed availability out there of shatterproof, they'll let that canola come in. I was talking to a few guys last week that had the old traditional varieties, they would probably be out swathing and they would be losing yield. So, if we get a late rain, maybe there's some improvements in some areas, but overall, I don't think we have the crop we had last year.
Yeah, production keeps advancing for sure. Judy Burt is saying, agree, Dave. Lentils average in areas are 12 to 20.
Ouch. Yeah.
No.
Too much rain, too much phenomyces.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I wish that conditions were perfect.
Yeah.
Like what is the deal there? Other acres in drier areas seeing 30 to 35. Well, thanks, Judy, for coming on and keep informing us here. I want to share the results of our infamous poll. How is your canola look? And see market data coming in here for real. You guys got your fancy machines there, and market data, this and that. I got real live farmers saying that 18% said better than I thought canola. 6% about the same. Half of them, though, over half are saying a few bushels less. 18% are saying a lot less, and 6% are not growing canola. But Dave, do you want to put a number on it? And this will live forever on the internet. Whatever you say, right or wrong, we'll know soon.
Are you talking a production crop size?
Yep.
Oh, well, there's two numbers, I'll tell you that. There's the numbers that Stats Canada is going to say that's going to be out there, which the market will trade. And then there's the numbers that Todd and I think that is probably out there, which they won't trade. And that'll probably be discovered in November of 2027, right? Because it takes them that long to finally catch up.
And how did they do last year? Just so an idea, like what's the spread usually?
They're probably off by, I don't know, a couple million ton from last year. Like last year was insanely big crops and more acres than they thought. I would say the acres are higher than what StatsCan has put out there initially, but with the loss of acres, they're probably getting closer, if that makes sense. But they were going to be wrong. So they're probably by default getting closer. But if we take, just even a 40 bushel, average crop out there, you're looking at maybe 21 million ton sub with a bias that it's going to trend lower. That's my bias.
Mm. And Todd, you were talking about this 2 bushels off the average is a million tons. Can you walk us through that math and how you're seeing it?
Well, there's 20 million, 24 million acres times 2 bushels is 48 million bushels, which there's 44 bushels in a ton. So that's, rough math, you're looking at 1 million tons.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. These numbers are fun and interesting. At least give us some framework to figure out where things might go. But
No matter what Stats Canada comes out with, they're generally off, and they start adjusting in December. But and like Dave said, sometimes it's another year past that where they continue to make adjustments.
Where does the most accurate gauge of that going? I mean, you guys have been doing this. Dave's been doing this for 30 years. Todd, you probably something similar.
30.
How do you know? How do you judge it?
Well, I think the simplest way to judge it is to take a macro view of it. A couple of things that I will look at is I'll look at satellite NDVI imagery. I worked in a previous life to this. That's what I did with Geosys, was looking at satellite imagery, and that'll give you like 30,000 foot view over whatever area you want to look at, and you can micro zone it down into actually crop zones, for example, too, right? And then historically compare that. Now, it's not 100%, correlation to yields, but it's measuring biomass. And there's always a bit of a correlation somewhat to biomass and yield production and yield potential. So that's one thing I'll look at. But the other one is just, just generally, like, you have to just follow what's going on with the weather. How much heat have we had? How much rains have we got in certain areas, right? How much fertilizer were farmers putting on? How much fertilizer was in the ground when they started? And Darren would know this from, talking to his guys. There was not a lot of fertilizer in the ground to start the season because we had such big crops last year. And that's just not a Western Canada thing. That's global.
Darren, do you watch these numbers, or where do you get your information from, or you just listen